Hello, everybody. It's Anna Bautista, your confidence and empowerment coach. And good evening to anyone who is joining me live. And hello, anyone who is watching on replay. If you're here with me, say hi. And if you're watching on replay, put hashtag replay in the comments. I would love to say, I would love to have you here live with me. And of course, if you have any questions throughout this live training, I would love for you to share it. And of course, it makes it a lot easier for me if someone is here live with me, I can answer the questions straight away. So I'm so excited for this live training. And today we will be discussing what is actually trauma. And And one thing that I want to mention, I just want to say that I'm very excited to run this training, and I really don't want it to come as a disrespectful if I'm too cheerful, discussing a topic which is really so important. But I want to tell what's important for me is that you see that someone who has gone through trauma can actually be a really positive and empowered and energetic person. And for me, the training on this, doing these episodes on Thrive After Trauma TV is more about finding solutions of us moving forward rather than wallowing in and reliving all these experiences that we have gone through before. So basically, this is the reason why I'm really cheerful, and because I'm excited to do this. It's been my wish to do this for a while, and finally things are kicking in, and we're getting the ball rolling. And today I will be discussing what trauma is, and when I know what trauma meant for me and how it impacted my life. But I wanted to look for a more specific and more official explanation of it. So I'm just going to read through, I've taken a couple of notes, but basically I just want to read through some of the things. So just so we're clear on that from official point of view, and then we can move on and I can share my experiences with you. So basically, trauma is the response to a deeply distressing or disturbing event that overwhelms an individual's ability to cope, causes feelings of helplessness, diminishes their sense of self and their ability to feel the full range of emotions and experiences. And basically, what trauma is a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. And for many of us, a different experience can have a different impact on anyone. So basically, what for me might be something really distressing, for someone, maybe you, it's not going to have such a huge impact. And but and everyone will have different ways of reacting to it. So it's not going to be universal. That's something that I can say for sure. It's not going to be universal how we react to these things. How everyone reacts. Not everyone will react the same. And basically, I wanted to cover about, when it comes to trauma, I wanted to cover something very important. What I find really important is, I had a conversation with someone recently, and she mentioned, when I think of trauma, I think it's this one big significant event, and that's it. It's just like a big hit on you, and this is it, and it's gonna make a huge impact on you, and something. It can be a one-off experience. Yes, it can, and that might be, for an example, a sexual abuse. It can be a death of a close one. It can be an attack on you or something like that, or a car accident, injury, something like that. So it can be one-off event. But what I find very important to flag up here and to mention is that trauma doesn't have to come through one single experience. And this is, I've gone through this, gone through something similar myself. So trauma can happen as a result of lots of small, small, I will put it quote unquote, small events that occur that don't seem like a huge thing at the time, but when they happen continuously, when they happen, or like when they are repetitive and they happen all over and over and over again, it can have a huge impact and huge consequences on someone on at the moment, and of course throughout their life. So I'm not sure if you have watched the replay of my last video, but there are a couple of things that I have mentioned about my experiences and how that manifested in my life. Was that I had an abusive father. So he was a man who was really, really hurt. He suffered from trauma and PTSD himself. And we were just like, my family was just a secondary, we were secondary sufferers. So, and there was one lady who said something really, really beautiful. Not beautiful, but actually something very true, is that hurt people hurt. And basically that's how it is. They hurt within themselves and they hurt those around themselves. And that's what happened in my case. And, there were no like huge events. There were a couple of like bigger things that happened, but a lot of it was, snarky comment here and there. It was an emotional abuse. So there were things that he would say, that I'm fat, that I'm no good. And, you wouldn't think of that's a huge thing like at the time. But when it happens constantly on a consistent base, like on a constant basis, and when you are a child and teenager and you keep on hearing that messages, you keep hearing those messages, what happens is when you grow up, you start believing those things. You make them as your truth. And this is what happened in my case. So I started believing that what he told me, that it was true. And I know that there are other, so I know one lady who was going through divorce, and she said, there were like, she's going through divorce and it's not like a huge, it's not a one-off event, but there are so many short moments that happen over the time that left her feeling traumatized with the experience. And I want to mention that these are the things that actually have a huge impact on someone, and they can be often overlooked because they are those stressors that we go through on a consistent basis that leave a huge impact on us. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples. So I've noted them down here, so just to make sure that I don't miss anything. So we have these one-time events, and these can be, for an example, I'll give you a couple of examples because sometimes we don't think of these things as trauma. And the reason why I want to mention this is because, you might be feeling about an event or something that you've gone through, and you're not sure if this is trauma and how it impacts you, and whether it's impacting you, and whether it's just like something to brush off, or whether it's something that you need to look into. Excuse me. So one-time events can be something as an accident or an injury or a violent attack, especially if it was unexpected or happened in childhood. Then you have these ongoing, like events like relentless stress, for an example, living in a crime-ridden neighborhood, battling life-threatening illness, or experiencing traumatic events that happen repeatedly, such as bullying, domestic violence, childhood neglect and abuse, living in a family home where there's constant abuse by the parent, or even and this is something that not everyone talks about, is having unhealthy relationship between you as a child and a parent, and where a parent is putting on you such a huge responsibility and treating you like you're taking care of a parent. And of course, sometimes those can be commonly overlooked causes. For an example, surgery, especially if it had if it left you bedridden, and if you need to if it changed your life so you were not able to do things as you were before. It can be something like a sudden death of someone close, the breakup of significant relationship. And for an example, if you've been in a relationship that lasted for a very, very long time, and all of a sudden you break it up, it can be very traumatic, because you can find yourself questioning your identity and who you are, how your life is going to go afterwards. And these are the things that I don't think people think about as a trauma, but they can be. And it can also be something like deeply humiliating or disappointing an experience, and especially if someone was really cruel, deliberately cruel. And these things can happen often at work. If someone is something happened and it was what they did was really cruel and deliberate and calculated. So there were a lot of office politics, and it made you feel like really small and insignificant, and really had an impact on how you feel, and it made you sad. Those are the things that can actually set a chain of events. And I think one of the common symptoms that are that come as a result of these traumatic experiences can be panic attacks. It can be it can knock, and in many cases I have seen this, it can knock your confidence out so badly, and you'll start questioning yourself. You'll start questioning all your decisions. And this can also happen if the event is not yet done. So, for an example, I know women who have gone through really abusing relationships, and these relationships were not. It wasn't the physical abuse. It was more. Or it was more emotional. If you're living with a narcissist, for an example, it can really knock your confidence out and make you question your decisions, everything that you know, and you will doubt yourself in everything that you're doing. And I think these are the things that not many people think about as a trauma, but they can have immense effect on someone's life, and how they can function. And of course, it can be sometimes very difficult to get out of these situations, especially if you are in an abusive relationship with a narcissist. What can happen often is that you get into that cycle of you're receiving the abuse and you don't feel confident enough to get out of it, and you start doubting yourself, and you just keep on going through that constantly, and there is no way out. It's just like a closed circle that you can't get out. And I am really hoping to bring a couple of experts to discuss discuss their experiences of these traumatic experiences, and of course discuss some of these difficult topics. Not everyone talks about it. I have someone in mind who mentioned that they've experienced narcissistic behavior from their partner, and they have, it took them a while to find their way out and live a life after that kind of narcissistic relationship. And I would like to feature that person to help you realize, just to get you a bit of deeper insight, and of course to give you hope that there is a possibility to live afterwards, have a really thriving life, and of course get you an insight of how you can get out and how you can get better, of course, and rebuild your confidence. I'm gonna have a look at the comments because there were a couple of comments that I've noticed are coming up. Okay. Oops. Okay, yes, I can see my dear friend Tatiana is here with me. Hi, lovely. I'm so glad that you're here. Oh, I'm so happy. Thank you, everyone who's watching with me. And I'm going to keep this open. So let's go a little bit about, I'll talk about the symptoms and how it can represent in your life. And one of the things that how trauma it will affect people's lives is that it will most probably overwhelm or your ability to cope. It might make you feel helpless. It might diminish your sense of self, your identity. You might question who you are after that, and of course, it can. And of course, you might not be able to feel the whole range of these emotions. So, for an example, it might limit you in feeling experiencing the feelings of happiness, fulfillment, and these are the things that I have experienced myself. So, for an example, for me, it took a huge toll on my confidence. I've experienced bullying as a child and a young adult, and at workplace and in my school, unfortunately. And the bullying that took place in school, it had a huge impact on me, so much that you might not know this about me, but I used to love singing and dancing and performing. I was someone who volunteered to sing on stage in front of the whole school. And then the bullying and the isolation and mocking left me feeling so, it kicked my confidence down so much that I was unable to speak in front of people, like in a group of people larger than 3 or 4. I would get choked up. I wasn't able to talk about like what I wanted to say. The thought of me being in front of like hundreds of people just like scared the life out of me. I would get these panic attacks. And it was just so overwhelming. And I think I'm getting a couple of more comments. Okay. I'm just going to get some water. So some of the symptoms can range from emotional and of course physical symptoms. I remember vividly of having panic attacks, and sometimes I would get so my muscles would get so stiff, and I would just like go into this. I would start hyperventilating when I thought about certain events or something triggered the memory of that event. It was so difficult to concentrate, and if you're struggling to concentrate and constantly keep reliving this and these moments and in your head, it can actually cause aches and pains, muscle tension, and this was one of them. A huge one for me: edginess, agitation. I was constantly on edge and constantly experiencing this. Oh, what if this happens? And of course, this is not because of bullying, it's because of other experiences that I've gone through. And I would get these moments when my heart would beat so fast. I was startled easily. I felt so exhausted. Fatigue was one of the things um, that that I experienced. One of the symptoms are also insomnia or nightmares. And when it comes to emotional and psychological, I think these have um, I think emotional psychological symptoms are very much related to physical symptoms, because what happens is we get this representation in our heads, and then our bodies just react to what is in our head at the moment. And for an example, some of the symptoms are shock, denial, disbelief, um, difficulty concentrating, confusion, irritability, huge mood swings, anger, anxiety, fear, oh, guilt, shame, also self blame. I know these are the big ones because I remember experiencing those very uh, strongly, especially when my father passed away. I felt such a huge guilt, and I blamed myself for not being there for him, for not um, saving him, because throughout the whole 10 years of the abuse that we went through, um, before he went into all of that, he was a really perfect father. And I remember those days when we were really, really close, and then all of a sudden it was a person that I don't recognize. And throughout those years when I was a young woman and a child, I felt such a huge responsibility because of our closeness to help him recover. And I took over such a huge responsibility on my shoulders. And when he passed away, before he passed away, I felt like there is hope for him. And when he died, I felt such a huge guilt and self blame that I wasn't able to help him. Of course, of course, I got over it, but it took me a couple of years to um, realize that it was not my thing to solve, and to accept the fact that there was nothing that I could have done. I've done everything that I could, and I very well remember those feelings. And I know that in a lot of situations when you experience trauma, the guilt and the shame and the self blame is huge, and it can really limit you on what you think is possible. And of course, it will weigh you down. It will weigh you down. And I withdrew from others a lot, and that was one of the symptoms of, um, you know, the trauma. I withdrew from others because I didn't think they could understood. I felt really, I felt alone. I felt sad and hopeless, like there is no way out of it. And of course, I felt really disconnected. There were times when I felt disconnected and numb, and those are some of the symptoms uh, that you might experience after um, after trauma, and even during. And there's this huge connection between our physical, like between our mind and body. And I know that a lot of these emotional and psychological symptoms are just the start of the physical. So they will manifest themselves like physically. And if these are left untreated, I will tell you from my experience, um, it had a huge impact on my health. Now, I cannot say for sure, but I think I personally feel that this unhealed trauma caused me to have a, get type 1 diabetes. So I got type 1 diabetes very late at life. I was 26. And I think it was as a consequence of unhealed trauma and unresolved issues that I was carrying on. And I know that it had a, a very big impact on my physical health, um, uh, on my digestion. I felt like there was a pit in my stomach, like stones. I was eating stones. That's how it felt for me. So I know um, it can be so it can be wide ranging. It's a very personal experience, and not everyone will go through the same symptoms. But I wanted to emphasize these symptoms just so you'll have an idea of, maybe think about it and see whether there are some experiences that you have gone through that have left you feeling like this. And I know that a lot changed for me when I healed from my trauma. And when I finally accepted the fact that uh, I am not my trauma, I am not broken, it's just something that happened in my life. It's one of the events but there are many more other events in my life that I can create a future that I want. And a lot of it changed when I did my NLP training and timeline therapy this year. And this was hugely transformational. And I always share that because up until that point, until that training, I never thought and I didn't believe that it was actually possible for me. But when I came to the training, I asked myself, what if it's actually possible to release this? And I remember during the first 2 days, I felt this huge pent up energy in myself as I was ready to release. I was finally at that point ready to release and ready to be free from trauma, to let it be in my past and not relive these, not identify as my trauma, but uh, uh, have it being just one event in my life and not how did it, she mentioned it's not a life sentence. So Lisa Wolf, an amazing lady, she said PTSD and trauma, it's not a life sentence. And the whole point of this training, on the whole point of this Thrive After Trauma TV is about showing you that it's not a life sentence. There is light at the end of the tunnel. There is life after trauma, and it's possible to thrive and succeed and to have a really happy and fulfilling life. Do you have any questions for me? I'd love to hear. I've been talking a lot. I'm going to check the comments here just to see what's happening. Oh, thank you, Lisa. Yes, it's a very personal journey. So Lisa is sharing. Trauma is a very personal journey. I'm very proud of you for sharing yours and for stepping up to bring this subject to life. Yes, I feel it's very important that we talk about these things. I know not everyone will be comfortable to share the details. And for I personally, myself, I wasn't ready to share this um, on such a public platform. I wasn't ready to share this uh, all until recently, and I felt it was really, really important. I don't know if I've shared this story, but a couple of months ago, earlier this year, I heard the story about the young woman who was legally allowed to commit suicide. I think it was Switzerland. I'm not sure. I don't know the full details, but she was legally allowed to do this. And when she applied for that, her reasoning was because she experienced such traumatic. She had those traumatic experiences. It made her feel like there is no hope. She felt hopeless. She felt lost, and she felt like the only way out was to die. And you know, for me, for a long time, I wanted to do something for people who have experienced trauma, and I had this vision in my mind, but I was always scared to talk about. And when I heard this story about this woman, it just reminded me why I wanted to do this, because I know there are a lot of other people who are suffering and who are going through the same thought process as her, feeling like there is no hope, like whatever they've been through, that there is no light at the end of the tunnel, and that it's the end of their life, and that they can't live happy lives. And I know that is not true. I know it because I was the person who thought that. I was the person who didn't believe there was any way I could have a successful life, and that it's actually possible for me. And I've gone on the other end, and I know there is a way out. I know there is, and I want to show you. And this is my message for you. If you're struggling, ask for help. I know that you can. I really strongly believe that you can heal from it, and that you can have a wonderful, wonderful life, and have whatever you wish and hope and dream of. I know that it's possible for you. I'm gonna check. Okay. No questions. Thank you, everyone who has joined me today. I'm really, really happy that we're starting to open up the conversation on these topics. I have the amazing Lisa Wolf with me next time, and I will be sharing a little bit more about her story. I will be sharing, she'll be sharing her message and who she works with, and of course how she got there, about her experiences. And I'd love for you to join us next time. This is going to be the first interview that I'm going to be doing for Thrive After Trauma. I have a couple of people that I really want to interview, so I'm arranging these and reaching out. But that's even if I don't get those people to interview, I still have a lot in my topics that I want to cover and that I can do on my own. So I'm really, really excited for that. Yeah. Thank you. Your message is powerful and demonstrate that there is something on the other side. There is. I know there is, and I will show you with the series of interviews that there is there is something on the other side, no matter what your experiences are. And I want to share the story of the people who have gone through those and gone on the other end, just so you can see that people from different kind of backgrounds have gone through this stuff, and they are thriving. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Of course, if you're watching this on replay, put them in the comments below. I will be sharing some links where you can get in touch with me, where you can get further help. And of course, if there are things that are really bit personal and you're not comfortable sharing in comments, send me a message. I'm always here, and I'm going to do my best to help you. If I can't help you, I will point you in the right direction so you can get help from someone else. And of course, you can always reach me at enabautista.co.uk. That's my website. And you can find more information about me and about my work in there. I'm sending you lots of love for tonight. It's been a pleasure. It's been a really pleasure being here. And if this has touched you, there are things that you would like to discuss further. If there is this seed in your mind, like a small thought telling you to reach out to me because you think I might be able to help you, please do. Please do. I'm sending you lots of love. Bye bye.